The Maldives is a tropical island nation in the Indian Ocean consisting of 1,200 geographically dispersed coral islands. Even though the islands are one of the most prestigious travel destinations in the world, Maldives is one of the lowest countries on earth. With a population of about 300,000 distributed throughout the 200 inhabited islands, we have been victims of environmental challenges for a long time.
When you look at the development of Maldives, it is very much based on the ecosystem. The 2010 study shows that 89% of GDP depends on biodiversity. And most of our biodiversity is marine ecosystems, and they are at their thresholds from climate change impacts. And so our economy is very much dependent on how we deal with climate change impacts of Maldives. We need to deal with them now.
You see, Maldives actually, I would say, we have quite a uniform climate throughout the year. But with the recent global climate change, we too have been experiencing changes in our climate as well. The temperatures are projected to increase, say it will rise to 1.3 degrees by 2025, and then it could go up to 3 to 4 degrees by 2080. And looking at the rainfall, we have an increase in rainfall in the northern part, but a decrease of rainfall in the southern part of Maldives by 2025. And then there would be an overall increase in rainfall by 2080 and beyond. And sea surface temperature is following a similar trend, a rise in the sea surface temperature as well. Even our sea levels, it's rising at a rate of 3 millimeters a year.
Agrunga sabung wara gina tanta halya ko mero rawara kuda weste ane emme riti ko ngonnan je sabu ko galya veli ko gossa den musumu go tonna badale sabu rashuge ke hisab ta halya ko dandabin ta neti gosdo nikal wara bod masala dimag.
Erosion is one of the main challenges and the biggest problem, one of the biggest problem in the country, and we are having a difficult time to mitigate to the impacts of erosion. We have always lived with erosion in our islands, and it's a part of the natural process. We have one-season erosion in one part of the island and aggregation in other side. But now we are facing very severe erosions, and island actually losing some big chunks of land.
Due to climate change, there's an increase in frequency of storms in the region. Surges from these storms cause flooding in the islands, which destroys the natural sand biomes, leading to erosion. Without the natural protection, the erosion gets severe day by day.
Out of all the inhabited islands, around 85% of the islands are facing erosion problems today, and around 30 to 35% are experiencing severe erosion with property loss and loss of industrial areas and damage to the households. Government have been trying to mitigate it with different types of erosion mitigation protections.
The human settlements, industries and vital infrastructure are very close to the shoreline. One of the most critical infrastructure is our international airport, as this is the only gateway to the Maldives. With a height of 1.2 meters, the runway is extremely vulnerable to sea level rise.
Vara kurisure fina ole den emme kuri zamano ga harmen finam feshiro ga mita khari ga badama hinga male khari inge male khari ga mihire komme faraki hama dirumagen hama kike bonane hama pura fon mas maha ki ba tuge murake ya ke kuda ge za za tuge chido hama warakani komme tanaka fumma dafa hingama je waruge 45 minute noni eggadiruge diving ne bokollave diverum perum me tourist un goyage ekam miharu hama challenging hama kommes ke yeah actually it wasn't what I expected, you know. Some of the corals are dead and mika complain and neng hama emme diving is na deve.
Maldivians, by tradition, have developed a system of total reliance on coral reefs, and that, in my point of view, is very important for our survival. So, coral reefs are the very existence of the Maldives. Coral reefs are the very existence of its people as well.
In addition to providing a natural protection for the islands, healthy coral reefs are crucial to sustain our major industries. If the current global temperature trend continues, there will be a threat to the survival of the coral reefs in the Maldives.
The Maldives is so highly vulnerable as well because of the sensitivity of coral reefs for environmental changes, especially climate related. I'm not denying the fact that there are human-induced disturbances as well. We have evidence to prove that 98% of coral reefs, shallow water coral reefs, totally died in 1998 as a result of bleaching, which is related to climate-induced temperature rises all around the world. Most scientists believe that there have been more frequent impacts on coral reefs, especially with respect to bleaching, due to global warming and sea surface temperature rise.
While our whole country is vulnerable to these climate-related impacts, basic necessities to sustain life is already a challenge. Fresh water availability and agriculture is scarce due to limitations of natural resources. The only available source of fresh water exists as a thin layer of freshwater aquifer, and a rise in sea levels would force saltwater intrusion into the freshwater lens. Where alternative water source is not available, people use rainwater for drinking and groundwater for other domestic uses.
In many islands, the existing rainwater storage capacity is limited, and during the dry period, they have to depend on emergency water supplies. Climate change induced decline in fresh water is affecting the island communities in the Maldives.
episto rahu bimum mihar fenkole naga nobu harman roga harman do research bengas tiri ka harman sama ham walun pem puragen dani naga boy gamone komme giye ke har nobu ben ham gas sedum besu nobu ham warab boda pora wanagode pump bata me har komme besu fenna bane namu ham fenna warab boda ba ba.
Our staple food is imported, since they cannot be grown due to limited land and being an atoll soil environment. We are only able to grow horticultural crops. Recently, we have increased our production, and communities in the rural areas are becoming more dependent on agriculture. Distribution of foods to the islands is very risky during rough weather. Extreme storm events have led to food running scarce in some islands, threatening food security.
During the recent years, we have noticed that climate change has an impact on the agricultural practices in the Maldives as well. We often see that there is intrusion of salt water into the farmers' field because the islands are small and the water length is quite high. We have contamination of salt from underneath the field, and also sometimes there are salt effects coming right from the ocean into the farms as well. So at these situations, the farmers has actually lost almost 100% of their crops during the season. And also again, we are seeing very often that there is high intensity rainfalls which actually flood the whole island. That means they also flood their fields as well. And this is also another occasion where the farmers lose almost all of their crops. Apart from that, we also see that there is often longer humid and dry periods, which is very susceptible for pests and diseases. sometimes 60% of their farms get destroyed due to these pests.
While the natural resources is under threat from climate-related impacts, human health is also at great risk and a major concern. Poor sanitation in the islands, combined with an increase in rainfall, will lead to outbreaks of many diseases. Accessing health services during severe weather is also a major concern for rural island communities.
Climate change is causing numerous health issues, increasing incidence of vector-borne diseases, outbreaks, aggravating many existing diseases, introducing new pests and pathogens, making climate change a major health concern in Maldives. Dengue fever and the chikungunya continues to be a public health concern due to increasing morbidity and mortality. Dengue fever is endemic in the country since 2004 with seasonal outbreak in 2006 reporting 2,836 cases and in 2011 reporting 2,909 cases and 12 deaths, the highest recorded in the country.
Mihar masir kami uri mid beti da dihar badaru embir kama hama badal nam dani den farge gata huduwe emasda ah kurve.
Fisheries is the second largest economic activity in the Maldives. The industry relies heavily on healthy coral reefs for its sustenance.
We talked about climate-related sea surface temperature changes, and also there are other major weather events such as the El Nino and the La Nina, which are large-scale weather processes that change the circulation of the oceans and also the currents of the oceans worldwide. These are very well-known cyclical patterns which are now affected by climate change, and as a result, we know that tunas are highly migratory species, and we have done a lot of work on tuna migrations, and it is believed the populations of tuna, their movements and their reproductivity and other parameters may be strongly influenced by changes brought to the overall ocean characteristics as a result of climate change. So we have had very poor fishing seasons.
With 1.2 million tourists visiting the Maldives annually, tourism is the leading industry in the Maldives, contributing about a third of the GDP. The threats posed by climate change to the beaches, reefs, and infrastructure on resort islands is a great concern.
People who are coming as international visitors to the Maldives are coming because of our nature, because of the marine environment, the pristine marine resources that we have. And it is our duty to ensure that these resources remain intact. Anything, including the natural impacts of climate change, is going to be detrimental to the economy and detrimental to the tourism sector. If the current scenario of climate change and sea level rise and the other impacts of climate change occurs, then we might actually have something like 27 to 33% of our revenue from tourism decreased in, let's say, about 2100.
The adverse effects of climate change is a threat to our very existence. Due to the limitations of being a small island nation, an impact on any part of our ecosystem affects the whole country. Our islands, our natural systems, and even our people are facing these challenges every day. Even though we are learning to live with these challenges, adaptive measures are being taken to reduce further damage to the crucial areas.
There are things we can do. There are things we can do with respect to dredging and reclamation, with respect to fishing pressure, with respect to our use of coral reefs. We have to stop all human. Maybe we may not be able to stop everything altogether, but we may be able to manage a lot of activities. A good example is the currently set up the biosphere reserve in Biotol is a good example. So we need to replicate this in other areas so that we maintain healthy coral reefs which can bounce back when things happen.
A lot of people do not know the effects of climate change, but slowly that people have been realizing it. We have one project in Lamerto where it is focused on climate resilient development. In the beginning of the project, the people really did not believe in us, but however now people have started believing because there's a lot of advocacy, there's a lot of information availability for them to know what is really happening.
We have to look at how we could reserve some of the islands and some of these areas to ensure that our future generations are able to see the marine environment as it is. Another aspect is we have to look at how we are going to deal with the emissions and also use of the fossil fuel and energy use. We will have to adopt definitely alternative renewable energy sources.
In order to reduce the use of imported fossil fuel in electricity generation and increase the energy security of the country and to reduce emission of harmful gases, we have come up with an investment plan. Under this investment plan, we will be installing renewable energy technologies at least up to 30% of daytime peak load in all inhabited islands within next 3 years.
What you see behind me is one of the adaptation measures that Maldives has put in place, and that comes with an extremely huge cost, one that the country cannot bear for all the islands, but all the islands deserve protection. The communities deserve this protection. We can say that Maldives has the capacity to adapt, but it needs support of everyone, of partners, of neighbors, and of each other.
Harmenna sama harmenge farudi zimma gotu komme mihika skurevena kamen innani eke sababu annani hama dangalwan kecche badale
komme kame gole bai bes warhagen ba maholu rakkadir kura tedwir kamage bes bak maskan kurat aharaka po hare muli duniya ni badal mi annam dani emme ekacche kya rangro tedwir kamage puri rangro.
What is needed now is action, and action based on facts. And the fact is Maldives is facing this challenge, the challenge of climate change.
Maldives is extremely vulnerable to the climate change. We are determined to adapt to the changing climate. We have an ambitious plan to transform our economy to low carbon, climate resilient society. We are here to stay in Maldives.
Maldivians have been living in these islands for more than 3,000 years. We have a history. We have a culture, and we even have our own language. Even though we are known to the world as the paradise on earth, we remain no more than just a dot on the globe. We continue to fight for survival against forces too powerful for us to control, to make sure we have a home for our families, a home for our children, to ensure our existence and to make sure there's a future for the generations yet to come.